Good day and welcome America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports, Patriotism in Action, Proud Protectionist, Constitutionalist, Political Independent. Let's get right to the debate. I know that's something that many folks, matter of 67 million apparently, at least according to the ratings, if that's to be believed, about 67 million viewed that in the initial broadcast. Many more will read about it or certainly be talking about it and going back to clips and watching so much on the news. So it's going to reach even more Americans. What is it with PBS and Jim Lehrer? I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he was completely incompetent and totally inept. It's sort of like Obama in the debate. Now, Jim Lehrer, I don't believe, is a lazy man. Obama is very lazy, became very complacent, and was sitting on a lead, and was doing rope-a-dope and playing for a draw. I think that was pretty obvious. And he doesn't like to put in the hard work. He doesn't like, he's never learned to be a disciplined candidate or a disciplined worker or employee. And so I think that's the real issue here is that, the abomination, the imposter in chief, he had great difficulty because he's not used to hard work. Now, Romney, I don't know how often he's gotten his hands dirty. Well, maybe bloodied, with Bain Capital and the chop shop and vulture capitalism, predatory capitalism. But this man is a very determined and disciplined dude. There is no question about it. He knows how to dismantle and he knows how to destroy. And I think he proved that when he took on someone like Newt Gingrich. And yes, he had the pesky, nipping at his heels, sweater vest man. And Ron Paul was too much the gentleman. But from time to time, he sparred a little bit. But I think they went through, about 50 debates? He's been in debates at the, running for United States Senate and governor. And so, and then he hired professionals to further train him. And that's why he was able to learn the techniques necessary to strategically dismantle an opponent. But this Jim Lehrer, I mean, if I were the moderator, I would have said, excuse me, I have a role to play here, and no, you're not getting extra time. You're each going to get equal time, and that means equal discipline, if you don't follow the rules. And we'll just turn your mic off. How do you like that? That's what I would have done. But I think that the moderators in the future, they're going to be much more aware of that. Now, Gingrich started that. And they all wanted to blame it all on liberal media. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so that got a roar from the crowd, and people got into it, and that was then, this is now. But Romney ran roughshod. I mean, definitely ran roughshod over the moderator, and even the president, even though he's an imposter, but the person playing the president of the United States. So my sense is that Romney is still rehearsing, continuing to audition, and trying to convince the globalist New World Order that he's the guy. He was their original pick, I believe, and not the re-election of the president. But as he continued to stumble, as he continued, they realized this guy was not likable, not credible, not relatable, and then he wasn't very good on the world stage, and he really seemed to be stumbling and bumbling. Well, he's trying to work his way back in. This is one man's analysis, someone that's been involved in the freedom, patriot, constitutional movements for 30 years. Okay? So you can take it or leave it. But this is my report. It's Tom Donahue Reports. And the only affiliations we have are the ones that decide to pick up this program. But I independently and solely produce this program. And yes, it's pre-recorded. So what? What's the big difference? How many of you really sit there and listen to every single second of any specific talk program? No, you go in for monologues. You go in for segments. You go in for interviews. Well, I'm going to give you the raw meat, the red meat, and a lot less filler. as well as a lot less commercial interruption. How do you like that? So Romney was more or less the prosecutor. He used the prosecutorial style. Now, not every prosecutor wins a case based on facts. Now, and again, we'll get to the facts of the debate. But Romney is a political chameleon. Could you imagine having an opponent that had held positions? Well, he's held many positions over many years, but let's just say, to be a little more contemporary, let's say within the last year or two, when Obama actually woke up from his slumber and being so, in a state of what do you call it, lethargic, or I don't know what the word would be, but anyway, he was in kind of a lethargic state of mind, and he almost had to be awakened at times. He just seemed to be completely disconnected from the process. That's not to take away from the ruthless and relentless dismantling that Romney was able to execute. I mean, his delivery and execution were great, but when I looked at him, and I thought to myself, by watching him, he was very overbearing, and he was extremely exuberant, and to some degree, okay, fine, he really wants this job. But I can't imagine the average American that would want to sit down and have a conversation or spend any time with Romney. I think you'd be in fear of Romney. I think you'd be concerned that, that you're going to be judged, or that you were going to be attacked, or that you were going to be treated in not the most kind ways, or maybe in a condescending way would be a better way to put that. Now, Obama has also got a problem with being somewhat aloof and detached, but there are times, because of his oratory skills, not debate skills. So he's good at reading the teleprompter and giving that kind of that Tony Robbins motivational, pie in the sky, you can be all you want to be a talk. But if you really go back to the debates that occurred in 2007 and 8, leading up to the Democrat nomination, you'll find that Hillary, dismantled and dissected Obama. And Obama did not put on the greatest debate performances. So, again, it's political amnesia. A lot of people don't remember that he really was. He was decent, but he wasn't great. But then again, he was hungry back then. When you're sitting on a minimum 5-point lead in the polls, and all you have to, and you're saying it's down to about 5% of the population in just a few swing states, and you're leading in most of the swing states, actually pretty much all the swing states, and some of them in a more commanding way. And you figure that even if Romney best him slightly, but I don't think he expected to be trounced, and he was. There is no question. It was a wipeout. He was annihilated. So we'll give Romney some points for the fact that he is a very good debater, very skilled tactician. And so he employed the strategies, he had the training, he had the experience, and he really had what's that factor that you would call beyond determination. He really wanted this. I mean, this was a high priority. And so that came through. So he was clearly the winner. There is no disputing that. But winning a debate and winning an election are two different things. Essentially what it did was, I don't know if it was a game changer, but it certainly put him back in the game. Because he was basically being wiped out. I mean, the Democrats did a much better job with their convention, and especially having powerhouse political heavyweights like Clinton being the closer. And Romney did not have a very good convention, and certainly did not follow up on that convention. Matter of fact, anything he said or did seemed to detract. And how could Obama had missed that 47% in going after him? I know Romney would have had some, half-baked answer, and now he's saying that he was completely wrong on what he said. But imagine debating an opponent that says, "Oh, I don't, that's not my position," but it's been your position for 2 years. I mean, how do you? So you have to, as a skilled debater, you have to say, so I'm talking to a new Romney. So the Romney from the last 2 years, he's not here. He didn't show up. So why don't you tell us what your new positions are, Mitt? Why don't you explain to us what are the positions you hold currently? Because I don't know who I'm debating with. And, but Obama, like I say, he was, no, it wasn't. Al Gore, yeah, thanks, Al. It was the altitude. Mm-hmm. We appreciate a climatology report. We appreciate that. But both of them, are not, Denver kind of guys. Well, I shouldn't say guys. I mean, I'm not talking about philosophy or ideology, as in like Boulder, Colorado, that area. But then again, you have very, very conservative. I mean, you go to Colorado Springs, and then you have to the north of Denver. There's many, many towns and small cities that are very, very conservative. So it's really a mixed state in terms of liberalism and conservatism and independent pioneer spirit. But what I'm trying to say is the altitude, because neither of them had time to really adjust. Although I think Obama's been to Denver quite a bit as president. So, but again, that's a real non-factor. I love that when they say they want to blame teams because they couldn't handle the altitude. Yeah, whatever. Toughen up. But there's this talk now that Romney was cheating. I don't know if note cards. I don't even care if it's written on a handkerchief. Palin, she wrote it on her hand. Remember, said, "Read my hand." But the point is that Romney could not remember which Romney was showing up. And so I think any points that he had prior to the debate would have been to remind him of what his newly found and newly conjured up positions are, and so that he wouldn't trip himself up and he could be a consistent Romney in the moment. Now, if you look back at George Bush Jr., he did not, as a matter of fact, he lost the majority of his debates to Gore and Kerry. There is no question. But what happened was Gore he encroached on his space. Kerry was very condescending and very elitist. And here's George Bush, even though coming from an elite family, he had that shucks kind of, I'm really, you guys can relate to me. I'm just one of the guys. And that worked. And then he said, well, I'm a conservative, but I'm a compassionate conservative. And so I think that he became more likable, more credible. They knew he was a two-term governor. They knew his father. And so many people said that was good enough. So he was not a great debater. Matter of fact, I remember one or two of the debates, you cringed. He was so awful. Now, Obama wasn't awful. It's just that you had a more aggressive adversary, a more disciplined and determined adversary that took advantage of every possible punch and counterpunch. And the current reigning champion, rope-a-dope, even for Muhammad Ali, didn't always work. And sitting on a lead doesn't always work. And playing for a draw does not always work. But the October surprise, and you want to hear it, because there's really two of them. One of them is the new Romney. Hey, I didn't say that. I don't believe that. That's not me. That's not my positions. Because he never really told us in detail what those positions were. So now he can wiggle, he can waver. That's Romney. The October surprise on the Obama side, 7.8 unemployment rate. Remember, the magic number was no president ever has been elected, well, meaning re-elected, with unemployment officially above 8%. So you've got two October surprises. You have a challenger that is not going away quietly. The globalist New World Order is probably giving him a second look over, as well as the electorate. So things are getting much more interesting. That's my analysis. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports and TomDonahueReports.com. Check out the YouTube channel and much, much more.